Good afternoon. This is Keith Schmidt with Integrity Data. Today we're going to be talking about tuning your payroll, tips for saving a lot of time for some year-end processing, and more on the beyond part. So a little bit first about who is Integrity Data. We've been in business since 1996. Initially we did customizations for 2 or 3 years, and then we started developing products. By 2006 we had 13 products, at which time Microsoft licensed all those products from us. Those became Advanced Payroll, Advanced HR, PTO Manager, and Benefit Self-Service. Also in 2006 Microsoft contracted Integrity Data to write all the HR and payroll code for them, and we've done that for 8 years. I myself have been a developer for Integrity Data for 12 years, as well as I've done implementations and done sales. I've developed a couple of the products in our list of products that we had to come back and do additional, we had to develop more products because we didn't have any to sell. There we go. So we have 11 products now, and we're going to highlight 5 of those products for you today. So the first time saver that we're going to look at is how do you handle your earnings statements and your W2s. You know, typically you're going to be printing and stuffing those, possibly, you know, sorting. Of course, you got to distribute those, etc. And it's very time consuming. Perhaps, you know, you have to portal option that you can log into. But then obviously people have to distribute those, and maybe you're trying to do less paper in your company, save money, do less paper. So what I'm going to do is let Dan Doolin give a little presentation here. This will just take about 20-30 seconds. Well, thank you, Dan. I guess I am the next video here on this webinar. So what I'm going to do, instead of show you all PowerPoints, I'm going to introduce these different products to you. And then what we're going to do is actually do a demo of that product in GP. So I'm going to flip over here to do that. So this is GP 2013, as most of you know. And the first one we're going to look at is the email suite. So when we do the email suite, the payroll user, there's some setup. Obviously you have to assign the employee an email address. It can be anything from, you know, Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo account, etc., or your own company's internal email accounts. So once you assign that, next step would be to come up to payroll processing. There's a little setup to do. The setup's pretty easy. But I'm going to show you the part that we do that you would have to do as a payroll person. It only takes a couple clicks, and about 1 second for the payroll person to process all the earnings statements. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to select up here on transactions the the earnings statement piece here, and right there we're going to email earnings statements. In this window here you've got all your pay runs, and we've got one selected already, and all your employees would be down here. I just have one in my demo system. So what you're going to do is you're going to select this, you're going to check those boxes and hit process. So I'm actually going to process this. We have an environment here, a VM session environment. You do get an error report if you have any errors in the system. So I'm just going to cancel that report. While this is processing, what's going on is our earnings statement product is going out to the folder that we've set up in advance. And then we are encrypting all of those emails for the employees with 128K encryption from Adobe Acrobat. And then as it's processing, as you can see, this is a live process. We will send out 60 to 70 per minute. Depending on how many employees you have, that may take a few minutes. So this is what you get in the inbox, wherever you have, and whether it's as Dan illustrated, it could be on your phone, your smartphone. It could be on your computer at home. It could be on your work computer. So what you do is get an email, and inside the email here you'll see that I have several things going on here. I've got 4 attachments in here. One of them is the actual earnings statement. So let me show you what that looks like. So we've got Adam Barr's earnings statement, and we're going to enter in the password for the 128K encryption. So this is password protected. I'm going to enter that in. And then you will get the earnings statement. This will be the same earnings statement that you have in your system that you print out today. So if you've customized it or added your logo, changed some of the fields around, it'll use the same one. So there's nothing extra work that you have to do to set this up. So this is what the earnings statements would look like. And let me go ahead and I'm going to save this one off to the bottom. We're going to come back and look at this in a minute. What else is on here? Well, a lot of times people would like to send out maybe some health insurance information or other information to all the employees. And we used to call this like an envelope stuffer, where you had extra pieces of paper you'd fold up and stick in there to provide this information to the employees. So we can do that too with our earnings statement. You just simply drop in whatever documents you want to have attached to the earnings statement email, and it will process those along with the earnings statement for as long as you have those documents in there. We also have the capability to have a employee specific document. So in the trucking industry, a lot of times they have to provide the mileage log along with the earnings statement. So it will email out employee specific information as well with their earnings statement. Okay, I'm going to go back in here to GP. The other part of this is, of course, the setup is part of it, but is the W-2 portion. So we're coming up on the year end, and we're going to look at the W-2s. So in the year end process, you would have a menu item that you can select to email out your W-2 statements. When you select that, this window will come up, and you will see your company information, your employer ID. Of course, this is you do this after you've done all your edits and all your typical year-end closing processes. And then you can choose what you want to have, what copies you want to send out. Usually it's all 3 copies. And then those are all in one PDF. Then you can save a copy for the employer, and you can include printed W-2s for the people who actually don't want to get an emailed W-2. We can go ahead and create a PDF for it, put it in an archive folder with all the other employees, and then later, if they happen to lose their W-2 form, then you could just go back through there and email out or print out their W-2 or email out another employee's W-2. So if I go into the setup part of that, this will work with SMTP or Outlook. You have a quick ability to change the subject lines, change the body of it. And of course you have some default folders, you have some security to set up as far as what you're going to use to get your W-2s opened up or your earnings statements. And if you want to, a person can add their own password if they didn't want to use one of those other passwords. So that is pretty much what the earnings statements and the W-2s will do for you. It's very fast. Again, it just takes a couple clicks and 3 seconds for the payroll to process. The W-2s is just about as fast as well. Setup is very minimal. Okay. So what I'm going to do is come back here to our PowerPoint. Next area we want to talk about is some of the things, most of our products with integrity data, what we focus on is trying to do some things that maybe Microsoft doesn't do, or maybe Microsoft doesn't do them real well, and a little cumbersome. So we try to automate those processes or make them much easier for you as a payroll processing person to use those. So one of the areas is on pay code entry, on transaction entry. Sometimes mistakes can be made. Maybe the time's not entered correctly, or they got the improper vacation amount. Maybe they had to work and they put on their time card that they took a day off and end up working. So now the next paycheck they say, hey, I had a mistake there. You need to fix that, or possibly you entered the wrong department, something like that. So, what do you do now to make those corrections? Well, today, according to Microsoft, you have to run through about 17 steps to get that corrected and work with that. With our system, all we do is one single step, and that is simply enter a minus sign on the pay codes. And I'll show you that in a minute. But first, I also want to talk to you about a little bit about negative deductions. In the case of negative deductions, we had a lot of requests from companies that they terminate an employee, and now they've over withheld in the previous, based upon when they terminate them, they've over withheld, for example, health insurance or maybe some 401k, etc. Now they need to, quote, reimburse them or refund them or cut a check. Well, typically what you have to do is go to the accounts payable people and say, hey, cut them a check, and then you got to do one of 22 steps to make a manual transaction for cut a manual check in that sense, and then go through all that extra work. Well, with our negative deductions, you can simply put in, after a minimal setup, you can simply put in a minus sign, and it will cut a check right out of payroll. It'll take care of all the transactions, the debits, credits, and you can see a complete audit trail with the negative payroll transactions as well as the negative deductions. And I'll show you this in just a second. Another area that a lot of companies get the questions where somebody, maybe an employee, is going to get married and their new spouse has, maybe 3 kids or 4 kids, and they're sitting there thinking, oh man, do I need to back off on my 401k withholding, or gosh, all these extra deductions, maybe that'll make up for it, or my taxes. Gosh, I wish I just knew how much my paycheck was going to be. So I'm going to call up the payroll person or the HR person and ask them, with these new life event changes, just how is that going to affect my paycheck? And of course, how do you do that in GP? Well, you have to go into every card, make the changes, run a build and calculate, see what the new check would be, and then of course you got to remember to go back and set those values to the same values they were before you changed them. So with our product, you can display everything in once. We can do a what-if scenario and calculate that check and see exactly what that check would be, and without disturbing anything in the live system. You don't have to worry about going back and changing anything. So let's look at these. Okay, let me flip this over here. So for the negative deductions and negative benefits, all you have to do, and once you set this up, when you come in here to reimburse someone for their health insurance and cut a check out of payroll, even though they're not getting any pay, maybe you've already cut their last check and this comes in later. So even without getting any additional pay or having to have hours on the time card or on the transactions here, you can go ahead and reimburse them that deduction over deducted amount. So you come in here and just simply select the pay type as being deduction now, and you would put in your code, and then for the amount you would put in the amount of money that you want to refund them back. Also on this screen I'm going to illustrate how you do a correction to a pay code. So typically on a pay code you would simply put in what that code was. Maybe they put down that they're taking a couple days off, they forgot to change it, and now they need to be have that changed and put that back on their leave management system. And so they just simply put in a minus sign. Of course, you would also enter a transaction for what it should have been. In that case, maybe it would have been an hour pay code, something like that, or a different department. So you would enter that other transaction on the next line, and then you would process payroll. So as you can see, it's real simple. You just use a minus sign. So what are some of the effects of using that minus sign in there? So if you go into example, on the earnings statements, on the paychecks, on any report that's in GP, it will show a minus sign. So I mentioned on the earnings statements before, you can see here as an example of a correction for PTO, and it shows up bracketed. The deductions would show up also. This particular pay run, they didn't have any. On the check inquiry window, if we go into the check inquiry window, pull up the transactions, you can see on the transaction it shows up here, as well as for the units of being 16 on here in this example. So it carries through all reports with pay codes or deductions would show up in a complete audit trail. It does the debits and credits correctly to fix the problem. And what did you have to do? All you had to do is put a minus sign in on the transaction entry window. Okay. Let's look at the what if calculator. So in the paycheck what if calculator, you come in here and you put in the employee's ID, and up pops this window with all the data about that particular employee. So this is exact employee data it pulls out. It pulls out their current pay information that they have for their primary pay code. If you have transactions for daily transactions or transactions for a couple weeks, you can select use last check, and it'll pop in all the transactions that they had. If you need to make an alteration for whatever reason at that level, you could do that. Likewise, all the federal tax information is available here. The state tax information is available just as it is in GP setup windows, as well as you've got all the deduction codes that the employee have assigned to them, and these would be here that you could change a percent or amount based upon what they have assigned to them. Maybe they're going to go try a 5% 401k or whatever the case may be. And then you simply select what do you want to include in this scenario as far as these deductions. You can even alter the benefits if you want to. Usually you don't need to. But when you get all these scenarios in place that you want to test out, then you simply hit calculate. And what the system does, it goes out there, makes all those changes temporarily, and then it creates a build and a calculate behind the scenes. And then it's going to show you the paycheck calculation report. And you can simply look over here and say your new paycheck would be $1,250.78. So that is quick. What we do is we put everything back just like it was before automatically. So you can go ahead and make all these different changes. And then they may want to try something else, or they may want to change their something with the pay. The other option with this particular piece is if your company provides, for example, like referral bonuses or referral fees, I guess it would be, or maybe holiday bonuses, maybe $300 or something like that. You can also do what we call gross ups. Now these gross ups are based upon exactly what the employee's tax records indicate, what their deductions may or may not be included on a particular bonus or something like that. So I'm going to put in a pay code and say we want this to be, say, $300 on that. And I want to gross that up. I don't want to include any benefits because I just want it to be typical gross up, but we're going to, have include their taxes as would be required on that. So now when we hit calculate, what it's going to do is it'll go out there, run through up to 10 iterations to find out, to get this to exactly the $300 within a penny. And then it will display that. And then you know that to get a $300 check, you need to make a transaction amount for $328.86. Okay. So by the way, you've done this for one employee, and now you say, well, gosh, I got to go over and create that transaction. No, you don't. You can select a batch here, create one on the fly. You can add that transaction to the batch. You can preview those transactions. But also we can do a mass gross up. So if you do a mass gross up, what you'll have is the ability to select a range of employees by maybe department, position, employee class, etc. Or do all the employees in the company. So if you have 100 employees, you're going to give them $300 Christmas or a holiday check. Well, then you can run all those at once, and then it will add them to a batch, and then you simply have to pick those up and run that through your payroll as a payroll check. So it does mass gross ups as well as individual gross ups, and also does various kinds of what if scenarios. So that is what the what if calculator does. As you can see, simply entering a minus sign for deductions or pay code transactions, or quickly opening up the what if calculator, running the scenarios by for the employee, can save you a considerable amount of time. Okay, the last area that we're going to look at is leave management. So with leave management, maybe you're still tracking leave on an Excel spreadsheet, possibly. Maybe you need to have more buckets. You have several different policies out there that you can't handle very well, or possibly you want to better manage your FMLA time or comp time if you're public sector, or possibly even just track hours independently. You might have a grandfathered policy and it's got some hours in there and you want to relieve those hours out of a bucket, etc. Employees may call you up and have several questions. You want to have a quick hand on getting to that information quickly. So Comprehensive Leave Manager will do that. And let me walk through a little bit about the Comprehensive Leave Manager. We have several types of leave types with Comprehensive Leave Manager. We have an accrual, which means that every pay period you're going to accrue a certain amount of leave. We also, if I clear this, we also have a lump sum, and lump sum simply means that maybe on their anniversary they get all of their vacation time. Got a couple kids that work at State Farm Corporate in Bloomington, Illinois, and they get all their benefits in terms of leave, sick time, vacation time, etc. on June 1st every year. So they would have a lump sum type of scenario. And then of course for public sectors we have comp time, and of course comp time couldn't be used as a bucket simply to track hours if you have a reason to track hours only and you're not public sector. So let's take a quick look back at the PTO. This is an accrual. So we have several sections here. We have various accrual schedules that you can set up based upon different scenarios of either hire date, adjusted hire date, seniority date, etc. We have a section for managing a waiting period. So you could have a one-time waiting period. It can be by hours, days, or date on that. If it's days, you put in the days, etc. We have a section for an anytime maximum. So at any point in time during the year, you won't your available balance will not exceed, say, like 200 hours. Again, we have a schedule for that. So if the more years of service you have, the more anytime maximum you can accrue, that is available. A similar option is carryover. So maybe you have carryover, several options here. Maybe it's a use it or lose it policy. Maybe you have a carryover in the calendar year, or maybe on their anniversary date. Anniversary date would be tied to whatever is selected over here, like adjusted hire date. Or like with State Farm, they have a carryover date of May 31st. So, they have their policy set for a carryover on another date. Or, some companies just let the employee collect as much time as they want to collect. So we have that along with the carryover. If some of this is going to be lost, some companies allow you to put that into a reserve or a crisis bucket or a sick bank or some other place, and you can set that code up and we can automatically move that part that's chopped off over to this other leave code. Of course, all this can be processed either during payroll or manually through a menu item to process them manually if you need to do that. Typically everybody does it, most everybody does it based upon during the payroll period. So let's look at the accrual schedules. It's a key piece. So an accrual schedule means that on this particular range of scenario, some scenario that your company or policy that your company has set up, we're going to pay based upon hours worked in a pay period, or maybe it's hours worked in a calendar year. Years worked is the most typical method, and the years worked hours worked in an accrual year is another option. So we have several of these options. I'm going to pull up the PTO one since that's the one we're looking at here. And it's similar. This is based on years worked. So this range down here says, all right, from 0 to 5 years, I get 3 weeks of vacation. So 3 weeks is simply 120 hours. If you divide that by 26 pay periods, you come up with 3.08. And then likewise from 5 to 10 years, you get 4 weeks and 5 weeks, etc. However that works out, you would set that up. We do have the ability to have a prorated accrual. So if they don't work the full 80 hours, you can prorate that by simply using a calculation factor, which is just taking the accrual divided by 80 hours in a work week. So if they only work 50, it's 50 times this number will be 5/8 of that particular accrual. So we have various options to handle the accruals. Next, if you're prorating it, you need to know, gee, what pay codes do I use to come up with those hours that we're going to use the partial accrual to. And secondly, we have taken pay codes. So you can have multiple pay codes you can use. If I take a day off on my time clock, I would enter PTO taken on that. So this is the typical setup, and it's just like in GP. If you change one of these settings in here, it's going to ask you to roll it down to all the employees that have that code assigned to them. So let's take a quick look now at the employee side. I'm going to discard these changes. And we're going to go into the cards, and we're going to go into leave. So if we pull up Adam Barr, and we pull up his PTO code, he's got assigned to him, since that's the one that has all the data in it. So when you assign this to the employee, and we do have a mass assignment for leave codes window, we also have a quick assignment window, which you can just select and enter real quickly when you're onboarding a new employee, and you don't have to come in here and do that. And it'll assign the default values to the employee, which is usually what you want to do. However, on an employee-by-employee basis, if there's any special exceptions, you can change anything that's in the white fields for at the employee level. So basically, this is the same information that we set up in the code. So let's look at, how do we look at this data? So I got an employee that calls us up and say, hey, I got a question about, my PTO time. I don't know if that's just right. But you can come in here and select the summary, and you can say, well, based for the calendar year, you have multiple options. We also have a fiscal year, and what this controls is simply the data that's in this particular window. You can do a 1 month range, etc. The system will remember by user how you set this up, and it shows all the earned, the taken, any adjustments that's been made, what their remaining balance is at this point in time, and pending would be for any of the options where you're doing a waiting period. So it goes into the pending bucket until you cross that line. When the waiting period is over, it moves it over to earned. Now if you want to take a look at more transactions, if I double click on that particular code, Comprehensive Leave Manager keeps a complete audit trail of everything that happens in Comprehensive Leave Manager, whether it's driven through processing payroll or you make manual adjustments or corrections. You can do that easily here, and it shows up in here. So what we have is, all these fields are sensitive by, sorting, however you want to arrange that on that. We also have provided for taken codes now, the taken from and taken to. So if on your transactions you enter that they took off Monday and Tuesday on the transaction, it will show over here that, from Monday, taken from Monday through Tuesday for that particular 8 hours of taken, or 16 hours in that case. It will show those dates in here so you can find out what specific days they took time off. That will be recorded in here. The audit trail keeps track of where it comes from, and again, you got all the earned, taken, adjustments, etc. On some of these, like for example, the maximum balance adjustment, there's some additional transaction notes that's down here, and that would show what's been accrued. Maximum adjustment of 0.96 when they accrued this particular one because they hit an anytime maximum. And by the way, we do have a report that shows all these negative values that's lost, called a lost time report. So you can get that if they curious as how did I lose all that time? I know I should earn so much. And so you got carryover cutoffs, maximum, anytime maximums would affect that. So let's just say you have to make a correction or do something that you need to do a payout. Maybe an employee was terminated and now you have to pay them out what they have. You can easily do that. You just simply create a transaction, and since I was on that window, it brings over this information. It shows that Adam Barr's got 87.24 hours. So what I can do is a payout in this case, put in what today's date is and that 87.24. Maybe write in here termination payout. Now whatever you put in the comment field will show up in the audit trail description. So if it's a transfer, if it's a termination payout, whatever you type in there, when you make these adjustments, it keeps a complete trail of that. And then not only can you pay this out, but you can also create a batch on the fly or use an existing batch, payroll batch, and tell it what the pay code is. It's going to default the pay code from the setup, and it will actually create that transaction ready to be processed out there in payroll. A couple other things you can do. You can make adjustments. You can do takens. You can do transfers. You can transfer from one code to another code within an employee, or if your company policies allow it, you can transfer hours from one employee to another one. Maybe they're an extended illness and they need some vacation time, or if you're using the sick bank type of thing, that would possibly be useful. You can do mass transactions as well. So if you have want to keep track of the holiday, you can create a holiday code and then use a mass transaction batch for taking everybody's time out for a holiday without having to put those all on transaction entry batches. Okay, another aspect that we do with Comprehensive Leave Manager is we tie in with the core FMLA and HR module. You don't have to own the HR module necessarily to have our Comprehensive Leave Manager, but if you do have it, you'll be able to use that extended capabilities. And to do that, you're going to go into Benefits and simply turn it on and say, all right, here's some FMLA codes. We got regular paid, regular unpaid, military unpaid. We also have created the ability to have employee level card for the your calendar, your employee, typically it's the FMLA calendar for the company. We have added employee level calendars in case they work like a 10-hour shift, starts a different day than the typical company calendar. So you can do that. And then of course, what we do is during payroll processing, we will go through and create this transaction, and we will pull this up at the employee level for Adam Barr. And what we do is we automatically create that transaction. So the practical use of this and the stress point that a lot of companies have is not so much someone that takes off a maternity leave for 2 or 3 months. That's pretty easy to handle in the core FMLA piece. But when they have carpal tunnel surgery and now they're going to go back for therapy, Monday and Wednesday and Friday the first week, and then the next week maybe it's a Tuesday, Thursday. Then after 3 months it starts acting up again. They go down for an hour for physical therapy. We can automatically create those transactions out here, and of course it tracks that, the number of instances and the hours available automatically with the core FMLA piece on that. In addition to having that information, we also integrate several places. So with a earnings statement or a paycheck, you can put on not only the remaining amount, but you can put on the earned and the taken during this pay period and the remaining amount due, and that's for paychecks, earnings statements. Also for Business Portal or the new web portal, Comprehensive Leave Manager is viewable out there on the pay stubs in the portal, as well as the managers and the employees can see the same information that is on the summary and the transaction windows that we went through a while ago at their respective levels. They can also choose to do a vacation request from the portal and select the appropriate code that's from Comprehensive Leave Manager in that process. Other thing we do, we integrate with Time Matrix. So your Comprehensive Leave Manager codes would show up, and the balances, etc., will show up in the Time Matrix time clock piece, as well as, and green shades also will integrate with our Comprehensive Leave Manager, so you can view and select the leave balances in the green shades portal. Okay, so I think I've covered most everything that I really want to cover today. If you have some questions, let me go back to my PowerPoint here a second and do some closing messages. We do have other products. I'm going to quickly do a one-liner on all these other products here. So we went through these first 5 or 6. We also have a mid-period pay rate change. So if you need to make a pay change in the middle of a period, whether it's salary or hourly people, that is a product that we do, and it'll do everything necessary to do that. We have overtime hours rules, which works also with the California overtime laws. It handles herein with the California overtime law, several other states where they have a daily overtime rate or a daily double overtime rate, etc. 7 consecutive days, etc. So we have an overtime hours rules that handles those special overtime issues. We have enhanced retirement plans for the case when you have not only a traditional 401k, but maybe a 457, a Roth option. It handles 403bs, etc. And it'll track those maximums across all the different codes, as well as if you have a tiered matching, it'll handle that. The life insurance tax calculator also handles the ability to the IRS part that's over $50,000 on group term life insurance. It automatically handles that. It will update the information based upon when the employee gets pay raises, as well as when their birthday calculates between each pay run. Of course, deploying accounts and splits is used when you want to allocate payroll costs, any of the payroll costs, including SUTA, FUTA, and workers' comp, to an accounting segment that is not that you cannot easily set up or set up at all in the payroll posting account setup. So I want to thank you for your time, and don't run Microsoft GP Payroll without us. If you have some questions, you can email me those questions at kschmidt@integrity-data.com, or go to our website. We have everything about all our products, including pricing, user guides, fact sheets, etc., on integrity-data.com. I appreciate your time today, and I thank you very much. This will end our webinar for today.